Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee for the opportunity to testify. My name is Akash Patel, and I'm a third-year law student at the University of Michigan. My family came to the U.S. when I was a year and a half old, and my sister was about 6. We came with visitor visas because lawyers and relatives told us it would take a couple years to adjust status, get our green cards, and become citizens. They were wrong. Even though we had gotten in line, like we were supposed to, we fell out of our legal status and waited for our green cards for 16 years, which is the average wait time for our visa category and for so many others. For 16 years, my family wasn't documented. We were one of those illegal aliens you hear about in the news today. For 16 years, my family was forced to live in the shadows, hoping that our communities would be our sanctuary. For 16 years, we paid taxes, like the vast majority of immigrants do, regardless of our status. For 16 years, we took advantage of all academic and professional opportunities that we were allowed to take advantage of. Luckily, our green cards did arrive, 16 years later. And after an additional 6 years, my parents and I became US citizens. So from start to finish, it took me 22 years to become a US citizen. And I've been here since I was a year and a half old. That's the good news. The bad news, the reason why I'm here is because of my sister. My sister Nisha did not get her green card when we did because she aged out of our petition, which happens when a family member turns 21 before the green card is processed. This happens all the time. This is despite the fact that Nisha was on the petition for as long as I was, since the age of 6. Nisha has benefited from the federal DACA program, managed to get her PhD in microbiology, and received job offers from MIT, Harvard, and NASA. She wasn't allowed to accept any of these job offers, even when I attempted to use congressional intervention. She had to turn them all down. But that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that Nisha lives in fear that the federal government or her local community could decide it no longer wants to support immigrants like her because of policies like the one proposed today. The life that my parents and me used to live, and the life that my sister lives today, is one plagued by uncertainty and fear. Walking down the street, driving a car, or even seeing law enforcement invokes paranoia and dread. Immigrants like my sister have to hope and pray that they aren't pulled over while driving and interrogated about their status, that law enforcement don't think of a reason to detain her and send her to ICE, or the legislature does not encourage community members to act as misguided immigration deputies like these House bills do. Since I'm in law school, Nisha often asks me to remind her what her rights are in case she ever has to interact with law enforcement and in case the conversation ever escalates to her immigration status. Her temporary status is tenuous since it relies on DACA, which doesn't provide a pathway to citizenship, and is at the whim of the executive branch. Depriving municipalities of the option to protect their immigrant community only serves to send a signal to immigrants like Nisha that they don't belong here. I know that my time is about to be up, so I will accelerate to the end of my comments and mention that I've spent most of my life in Oklahoma, a state that is infamously anti-immigrant, where they have cities and counties that are explicitly anti-sanctuary. My sister and I have both been inappropriately asked about my citizenship, and I have been inappropriately asked if I was a terrorist, usually on days when I had a beard. When these policies are enacted, community members don't trust the police, and police can't rely on community members for input to complete their investigations. These are not abstract hypotheticals. These are the unfortunate, inevitable realities of policies like this. In response to something that the first representative said, I think this point is extremely important. It is said that the purpose of this bill is to clarify responsibilities and provide a clear framework for law enforcement. But I leave you with one of the most important conclusions that you could draw from the Department of Homeland Security last year. The Department of Homeland Security's own Office of Inspector General last September of 2018 did an internal investigation on the efficacy of anti-sanctuary city policies. It concluded that municipalities participating in these programs, quote, hinder ICE's oversight and management, end quote, of immigration enforcement activity. The report also warns that the federal government is, quote, unable to properly monitor interactions between undocumented people and deputized individuals because they can't determine the legal basis for their removal.
Sir, Representative Manoogian has a question.
Yeah.
And we do have one more to testify before our hard deadline of noon. Representative
Thanks,
Manoogian.
Mr. Chair. I'll keep it brief. Thank you so much for your testimony today. Obviously, I feel it really does add to this discussion. I do have a brief question for you, and I will probably have to ask you to speak on your sister's behalf. So I'm sad that she's not here, that she can answer this question. But I'd like to ask you: should a crime occur where your sister is the victim? And, I hate to bring this up, but if there's a situation of domestic abuse or a sexual assault, do you believe that your sister would feel comfortable with going to law enforcement to report such a crime?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, sir.
In closing, I will say one thing. The previous representative, the one who spoke first, was right about one thing. This bill does clarify something. It clarifies our tolerance for punishing immigrants of the symptoms of a broken system. Thank you.